Picture this. No, not this, I mean this. Picture this. You're born into a super chubby family, where your body magically transforms every morsel of food you eat straight into pure fat. Whether you're munching on veggies or chomping down on fast food, your genes are like, nah, let's pack on those pounds, baby. You hit 83 kilos at the tender age of 7, and by the time you're 16, you're tipping the scales at a whopping 420 kilos. Most folks would throw in the towel, right? But not this kid. Oh no, he's like, not today, Destiny. I'm gonna kick your butt and show you who's boss. But no matter how hard he hustled, Destiny wasn't budging, making him more look like his sumo wrestler father. However, Homeboy got built like an elephant, even more stronger. So his schoolmates started worshiping him like he's the big daddy protector. They even slipping him money and snacks to shield them from bullies. Before unraveling more of the tale, let's rewind and start from the very beginning. The story kicks off in the office of the head pediatrician, where the doctor finds himself overwhelmed by the test results and the precarious situation unfolding before him. As he turns to address concerned parents inquiring about their children's well-being, he is met with an unsettling sight. Two colossal figures, standing at an imposing height of 3 meters and a width of 2 meters each. The poor doctor, struck with a mix of fear and hopelessness, musters the courage to cautiously inquire about the father's occupation, wary of provoking any potential danger. The intimidating father, clad in a menacing aura, discloses that he is a professional sumo wrestler, having recently battled against the elite in Japan before arriving at the doctor's office. Despite the intriguing revelation, the pressing concern remains the well-being of his son, setting aside the tales of his fierce battles for another time. The doctor abruptly rose to his feet and slammed something to the floor in anger, proclaiming with certainty that the child did not resemble a typical, healthy individual of his age. Presenting a visual aid displaying the child's physique, the doctor emphasized that the child had ballooned into a round shape akin to a ball. It was evidently a genetic issue that had resulted in the child being a miniature replication of his parents. Rather than evoking sadness, this revelation piqued the parents' curiosity, prompting them to lean in closer to scrutinize their son's image. With a crestfallen expression, the doctor ruefully revealed that the child's body and metabolism were extraordinarily unique, converting every morsel he consumed into pure fat. In the doctor's professional opinion, the child's weight would remain stagnant unless a significant change occurred in his body's composition. Once again, instead of spiraling into sadness or anger, both the dad and mom found themselves relieved, thinking this news was the best thing they could have hoped for. To drive home the point that their child's health was at stake, the doctor decided to paint a picture of the future for them, a future where their son would face challenges due to his weight once he entered school. This revelation caused the child to pause his snacking, transitioning from shock to fear upon realizing the potential consequences of his body shape at school. The doctor's final warning about getting bullied and shunned by others lingered in the mind of the 5-year-old boy, prompting him to make a tough decision. He defiantly put aside his snack, determined to do whatever it took to shed the excess weight and achieve a fitter physique. Over the next couple of years, until the age of 7, his primary focus became running on the treadmill at maximum speed. With the unwavering support of his parents and his own hard work, he reached that goal. Despite his efforts, the weight continued to climb, reaching 83 kilograms by the time he turned 7. Nevertheless, he refused to lose hope. Whenever an opportunity arose, such as a family trip to the beach, while everyone else relaxed and enjoyed their leisure time, this determined soul devoted over 5 hours to swimming. To prove his dedication, he even took on the challenge of chasing after sharks and hunting them. Despite his relentless determination, he added another 37 kilograms to the scale, tipping it at 120 kilograms by the age of 9. At the age of 11, his weight reached 180 kilos without even eating a proper food. But now the boy was much stronger than before. For challenging himself, he usually participated to join streetcar races. However, he didn't flaunt a fancy sports car like the other participants. Instead, he shackled himself with 4 wheels and raced ahead, outpacing those turbocharged speedsters with his bare legs, leaving everyone in a shock and disbelief. Year after year, he pushed himself to the limit. Throughout this time, he survived on a strict diet of only vegetables and healthy fare, yet saw no significant change in his physique. Despite enduring grueling training regimens and engaging in intense sports, surpassing levels even martial artists could only dream of, his weight stubbornly continued to climb. Every day, he tackled unimaginable feats, conquering the most treacherous mountains in the country, boasting strength that could defy gravity with a mere finger, and lifting weights that defied belief with a single hand. And so the boy persisted in his quest to shed weight, yearning to evade the ridicule of his school peers. Fast forward to the present day, where a fellow was preparing his gaming console and then powered it up and delved into his favorite game, perhaps a game like Warzone or Call of Duty, or whatever. Donned in a school uniform, he sat in solitary concentration, engrossed in the gameplay until a piece of paper unexpectedly smacked him on the head. It appeared that he was in the midst of a school class, relaxing and enjoying his time, until a girl who seated beside him sought to warn him of the approaching teacher, aiming to prevent the boy to get caught. Despite the boy's displeasure at the interruption of his gaming reverie, he remained steadfast in his belief that he would never be noticed by the teacher, as he strategically positioned himself behind another student whom he dubbed the protector of all mankind, the formidable Big Daddy Shitian. And so, it was our protagonist, seated at the front row, facing the teacher, shielded all his peers behind him with his towering spherical physique. This time, the kid was no longer a kid, but a 16-years-old boy and weighed 420 kilos, now more like a giant balloon. Shitian always sat in the first seat in class, not because of loving the class or studies, but he did this on purpose to not only cover for the boy playing video games, but also for many others who found classes boring or preferred to chase their desires in class time. Not to mention, the chair under his huge butt was something odd. To see how that small wooden chair that barely touched the boy's butt could handle that amount of weight without shattering was something amazing. Reaching to this age, Shi Tian couldn't help but wonder how only 50% of what the doctor had said when he was 5 years old had come true. No matter what he tried, he never lost even the slightest bit of weight. However, another half that he was supposed to be shunned and bullied by others never happened. Or maybe happened, but not as like as he thought. For example, whenever he entered a place like the school gym, everyone greeted him with interest, cheering for him as if he was a famous celebrity. As soon as he entered the place, many students approached him, showing they're ready to offer the big guy money and allowance in exchange for protection against other bullies for a month. And many others came with complaints about how higher-grade students bullied them, seeking Shutian's help to get revenge and show who's the real boss around here. Some even came bearing snacks, offering them to him and requesting him to sit in front of them during the next exam. But as the boy was always on a diet, he couldn't indulge in the snacks. Instead of rejecting the student, the protagonist politely asked for something healthier, like celery and bitter melon juice. It was the moment when student tossed aside the snack and summoned what Shutian requested, offering it to him immediately. Having a bunch of fans made him feel good, but the big boy always saw them as his buddies and would do anything for them without expecting a payment. On the other hand, the way they treated him like some kind of protective father wasn't exactly his cup of tea, but still was better than being alone. Meanwhile, when Shutian was hanging out with his student pals, someone straight up shot a soccer ball at his face. The boy hesitated to retaliate. His peaceful moment totally ruined. And wouldn't you know it, it wasn't an accident. 2 dudes did it on purpose. They came closer and shamelessly called Shutian fatty and questioned if he was really the boss of the first graders in the school. They were so dang cocky that they even had the nerve to ask for money from him. Shutian still couldn't wrap his head around how these average Joes had the guts to talk to him like that, so he asked them to repeat themselves. But instead of cooling the situation, this just pissed off those guys even more. They demanded that Shutian hand over all his cash, not willing to waste any more of their precious time. Right there, some of the other students who knew those guys from before started to chatting about this too, revealing they are some third-grade high schoolers who recently became the new bullies in the neighborhood. And on top of that, they have been participating in the boxing club for a long time. For a moment, there was a sense of disappointment among them, a realization that everything seemed to be coming to an end soon. But they didn't make it clear that it was all over for Shi Tian or for those 2 bullies. Just then, the big guy let out a deep sigh, turned around, and started to move. However, he didn't want to run away from the bullies. Instead, he had a different idea in his mind. He approached the girl who was about to throw the metal ball and momentarily borrowed it from her and, of course, apologizing for it. As expected, The girl was taken aback, asking in shock why Shitian took her ball in the middle of her throw. Without hesitation, the big dude threw it with lightning speed towards the other side of the soccer field, fast enough to create a tornado behind the ball, sending everyone flying through the air due to the blow of it alone. The metal ball finally stopped after hitting the goal post and changing its shape. It was now clear who the other students had been talking about. This scene scared the living daylights out of those bullies, leaving them frozen and stunned. Everything got real scary when he decided to snatch up another metal ball, looking like an absolute beast. That was the time when the bullies were all like, "Nah, fam, we need to go bathroom," and bolted faster than when their dad ditched them alone. But even in that situation, they made a vow to bounce back and seek revenge. Not long after, the other students mobbed the balloon protagonist, starting the whole worship party and hyping up their unbeatable dude, Shitian. The only one left frozen in place was the girl. Looking totally dumbfounded as it seems, she saw Shitian's power for first time. Those punk bullies were running it as fast as they could, then hid in a corner, panting like they just ran a marathon. The blonde dude then called the silver-haired guy Big Bro, reminding him that what went down with Shitian was the ultimate humiliation they could face. Silver-haired dude was already teetering on the edge, and when his bro brought up the past, he snapped and grabbed his collar, shaking him like a damn snow globe, raging about what they should have, or better I say, could have done against that tank of a guy. Blondie knew they had no choice but to bounce, but he still asked his bro what's their next move to bring back their honor. Silver-hair guy let go of his collar and said there was squat they could do for now. However, they cooked up a plan for some sweet, sweet revenge. As the night fell in the school gym, the entire place started rumbling like a darn earthquake was rocking it to its core, making the situation inside even more intense. It couldn't be anyone else except the big guy, who putting in some serious sweat equity when everyone else left the school. He was pumping iron and busting out jumps like there was no tomorrow, but there was some sneaky business going on that he had no clue about. That blonde bully from earlier was on some next-level espionage, peeping on the giant dude and trying to figure out what the heck he was up to. It seemed like he threw around his bully weight to gather intel from other students about Shitian's daily routine and found out he's in gym now. While he was playing detective, the silver bully guy was posted up behind the gym door, scratching his head over why this powerhouse of a man, who was already stronger than 99% of folks, was sweating it out in secret. In his twisted mind, he started to entertain the idea that maybe this guy was training up on the down low to do some assassination job. Suddenly, the demeanor of the silver-haired guy shifted as he revealed he has some sinister plans to avenge their earlier humiliation. However, his companion was reluctant to cooperate, believing that if they provoked the big guy again, they wouldn't be able to escape for second time. The blondie showed no interest and asked to be allowed to leave, but his request was denied. The silver-haired bully proceeded with his plan, retrieving his backpack and opening it to reveal an array of chains, locks, and glue that he had prepared in advance. Without wasting any time, they began sealing all the gym doors, one by one. They used everything they had to lock the entrance doors and trap Shitian inside. They even applied glue to ensure their task was thorough, intending not to let even air reach the boy. After completing their task, the silver-haired guy, like many bullies of his age, lit a cigarette and started walking away from the gym. However, it didn't take long before he reconsidered and tossed the cigarette aside. Feeling satisfied with his act of revenge, regardless of how cowardly it was, he walked away. Inside the gym, Shitian was so engrossed in his own activities that he didn't notice the noise the bullies made while sealing the gym doors. He approached his bag and began searching for a specific item. He had also prepared other equipment, such as a large scale, numerous metal balls, and a sizable wooden board. Eventually, he found what he was looking for and pulled it out. It appeared he had plans to determine his exact weight using an unconventional method, as regular scales couldn't accommodate his weight. The item he retrieved resembled an inflatable boat, which he began to inflate with care. Once he finished inflating the boat, he filled it with water, then brought over the wooden board and placed it on the water. A few moments later, Shitian carefully lay down on the board. It seemed he was attempting a method inspired by an ancient tale, where someone sought to measure the weight of an elephant. Given that Shitian was nearly as heavy as an elephant, he was trying to replicate the same technique. He marked the edge of the board where the last visible portion was submerged under his weight. Then, dripping wet, he stepped off and began filling the board with metal balls continuously. He persisted until the mark he had left on the board once again met the water level. He had placed enough weight on the wooden board to replicate the same position as when he was lying on it. The next step was to weigh a few of the metal balls and then multiply the obtained weight by the total number of balls he had placed on the board to determine his current weight. It took some time for him to calculate his weight using this method, but he soon realized that he was just like the elephant in the ancient story where this technique was used. Overwhelmed by sadness, he realized he had gained a few more kilograms in a short period since the last time he checked. What he didn't know was that the cigarette the bullies had intentionally discarded in front of the gym door had started a fire. The gym door and its surroundings were engulfed in flames, producing a significant amount of smoke. After some time had passed, Shi Tian finally noticed the smoke and fire spreading inside the gym. He was shocked to find himself suddenly surrounded by flames. In a moment of panic, an idea flashed through his mind. Instead of using the water hose to extinguish the fire or create an exit, he quickly grabbed the inflatable boat and emptied its water over himself. He knew he couldn't afford to waste time, as he risked suffocating or burning at any moment. Rushing to one of the gym's doors, he attempted to open it, only to discover it was locked. With no other options, Shi Tian realized he had to muster all his strength to escape. He used his body weight to slam against the door, trying to force it open. Despite failing on the first, second, and even third attempts, he persevered. Although he wasn't in the best condition to use his full strength, on his fourth attempt, he nearly broke through not only the door, but also threatened to damage the walls connected to it. Finally, on the fifth attempt, he managed to break free. However, due to a lack of oxygen and the exertion from his desperate efforts, he collapsed immediately after escaping, teetering on the brink of unconsciousness. In his final moments of awareness, he called out for help, but no one was nearby to assist him. For reasons unknown, the entire building continued to burn without intervention from firefighters or anyone else. The next day, when the building had burned to the ground and nothing remained but ruins, a hand surprisingly emerged from the debris. After a few minutes of struggling, the figure managed to free himself from the heavy rubble, revealing a person who bore little resemblance to the Shi Tian once known. With no clothes and completely naked, as if everything had been consumed by the fire the previous night, the boy was amazed and wondered if he was alive or had been sent to the afterlife. He approached a broken mirror in a corner to check for any injuries. To his astonishment, he saw a completely different person staring back at him. Shi Tian's eyes bulged in utter shock as he gawked at the stranger standing before him, casting a fierce glare at his exposed body. Completely dumbfounded, he couldn't help but ponder who the hell this person was. Out of pure desperation, Shi Tian attempted to initiate a conversation with the mysterious figure in the mirror, questioning whether they too were confined within the gym after the inferno. However, the reflection merely mirrored his actions, leaving his ridiculous inquiry unanswered. Encountering a drastically different and ordinary version of himself shattered all his expectations, making it impossible for him to believe his own eyes even after quite some time. In a sudden impulse, Shi Tian snatched the mirror into his hands, lifting it up in hopes of viewing his reflection in a more favorable light. Little did he know he was exerting too much pressure on the mirror, inching closer to causing it to shatter into a million freaking pieces, resulting in injuries to his own hands. Setting the mirror down, Shi Tian began to gingerly trace his face with his now bloody fingertips. Lost in thought, he couldn't help but marvel at the handsome and alluring appearance of the guy staring back at him, in stark contrast to his own self-image. His heart pounded erratically as if struck by Cupid's arrow, pondering the possibility of being either dead or experiencing some unexplainable miracle that transformed him into this captivating individual. Suddenly, the sounds of police cars, fire trucks, and ambulances pierced the air, arriving a day late after everything had already been reduced to ashes. The loud wails of the vehicles jolted Shi Tian back to reality as he realized he was amidst the ruins of a gym, stark naked. The mere thought of someone catching sight of him in such a compromising state sent shivers down his spine. Not only would they pin him as the freaking culprit behind the chaos, but rumors about his bared ass would surely spread like freaking wildfire. In a frenzy to escape the calamity, Shi Tian knew he needed to cover his private bits before he ventured out. However, all he could scrounge up in that dire situation was a freakishly large gym flag, which was better than nothing. Reluctantly, he draped it around himself, feeling utterly ridiculous, but with no other choice in sight. Minutes later, in the bustling pedestrian zone of Nanjing Road in Dongshan City, where life went on as usual. Out of nowhere, a blur shot through the crowd at breakneck speed, catching the attention of two unsuspecting cutie girls. Their cheeks flushed crimson as they laid eyes upon the nearly naked yet undeniably handsome guy for a fleeting moment, causing them to clutch each other in a mix of shock and infatuation. Further down the road, a group of middle-aged women swayed and belted out a motivational tune for their exercise routine. In a flash, faster than a dang missile, Shitian breezed past them, igniting a blazing inferno of desire in their hearts that made them temporarily forget their purpose. As they gawked at his passing figure, a fire of longing was kindled within their souls, disrupting their synchronized moves. Meanwhile, a dude cruised along in his swanky supersport car, engrossed in a conversation with his manager about business matters. Out of nowhere, Shitian zoomed by in a blur, causing the businessman to flinch in astonishment and lose control of his vehicle. The luxurious car careened off the road, colliding with a tree in a devastating crash that left the man shaken to his core. Overcome with relief at being alive, he wept like a lost child, grappling with the harsh reality of the unexpected accident. Without batting an eye or sparing a second glance, Shi Tian continued on his path, indifferent to the chaos he had caused. The man's mesmerizing allure left a trail of enamored ladies in his wake, but the real kicker wasn't his stunning face or that tantalizingly exposed body. It was the message scrawled across the scrap of fabric that barely covered his lower half, adding another layer of mystery and intrigue to his enigmatic persona. The message on the fabric read, "Encourage and promote sportsmanship," coupled with his stunning physique and handsome face, stirred envy among the women who couldn't help but pine for the boy's non-existent girlfriend. Regardless of their age differences, a wave of support surged for Shi Tian, with some cheering him on and others labeling him as a pervert. Meanwhile, some were scheming to track down the boy, seeking his contact details for a possible meetup or to score his WeChat number. Holy crap, the protagonist never saw this crazy turn of events coming. He initially just wanted to slip away unnoticed from the aftermath of the fire, but now found himself caught in a whirlwind of attention he never expected. In that moment, a montage of memories from days gone by flashed before Shutian's eyes, triggering a familiar sense in his mind. The mix of familiarity and divergence in the current situation left him feeling utterly mortified, his cheeks ablaze with embarrassment. Unable to bear the scrutinizing gazes of the women around him any longer, he made the snap decision to hightail it out of there and retreat to the safety of his home. The spectacle of his swift departure was more than the bystanders could handle. As Shutian raced away, a gnawing hunger gnawed at his insides, as if he hadn't eaten in freaking decades. After hours had slipped by, someone, likely Shi Tian himself or maybe his parents, reached out to the school to report that the boy would be taking a day off due to a fabricated illness. The news sent shockwaves through the student, with folks questioning whether a virus potent enough to afflict someone as seemingly invincible as Shi Tian could actually exist. The mere notion of such a virus raised concerns about the potential threat it posed to humanity, prompting an immediate internet search for any hints of a newly emerged deadly contagion. Meanwhile, in a quaint abode on the other side of Dongshan City, a mysterious figure delved into online research on rapid weight loss. This seeker of answers turned out to be none other than Shi Tian, the enigmatic protagonist grappling with the sudden transformation of his physique. Desperate to unearth the cause behind his newfound appearance, Shi Tian scoured the web for clues but hit a dead end. Frustrated and at a loss, he switched gears and flicked on the TV, tuning in to a popular show renowned for featuring a lineup of dashing men, each showcasing unique skills and talents. From professional dancers to powerhouse vocalists, the contestants vied for votes from viewers, competing for a grand prize that promised to shake things up. As Shi Tian immersed himself in the show, he eagerly mimicked the movements of the guys on TV, replicating their steps with surprising precision. Not only could he match their dance sequences flawlessly, but he also occasionally outshone the professional dancers with his own flair. Lost in the allure of the show, he failed to notice the passage of time, slowly realizing the program was nearing its conclusion. The realization dawned upon him that his body felt weightless, allowing him to replicate any dance move effortlessly, despite never having tried dancing before. Approaching a mirror in the house, Shi Tian stared at his reflection in disbelief, questioning whether his sudden weight loss was the result of a miraculous transformation, or merely a figment of his imagination. After a brief moment of contemplation, the truth sank in. He was indeed in a new body, but his euphoria was interrupted by the raucous growling and rumbling of his hungry stomach. Despite already devouring 4 meals before noon, hunger gnawed at his insides once again, hinting that his parents were likely not at home. In a ravenous frenzy, he transformed the reception room into a makeshift trash can, overwhelmed by the seemingly insatiable appetite that plagued his newfound form. Shi Tian couldn't bear another second of his raging hunger, so he made the bold decision to seek out a doctor and spill his guts. Once he began to spill his story to the doctor, the man's face transformed into a mix of confusion and suspicion, as if he thought the young lad was pulling his leg. It all started to get more complicated when Shi Tian whipped out photos from his recent high school days, showcasing his former healthy self until yesterday and comparing it to his current skinny state. The doctor initially thought he was being pranked, but as it became clear that the boy was dead serious, a realization dawned on him. This kid was there to challenge his 40 years of medical expertise. In a move to crack the case, the doctor swiftly dispatched the boy for a thorough examination, hoping to uncover any clues that could shed light on the sudden transformation. Without a fuss, Shi Tian dove into the tests, leaving no stone unturned in his quest for answers about his abnormal body. These exhaustive tests dragged on for over 2 hours, culminating in the awaited results. As soon as the doctor took a look at the results, he found himself dumbfounded by what he discovered. Every single marker from blood pressure to cholesterol levels was hovering in the realm of normalcy. The boy himself couldn't believe his ears, for he was convinced that something fishy was afoot with his own body. The doctor found himself scratching his head in disbelief, questioning the veracity of the boy's tale about his past. Despite his skepticism, the test results painted a picture of unparalleled health, surpassing even the standards of the healthiest individuals. Shi Tian, on the other hand, was floored by the news that his body was in tip-top shape. However, the revelation that he was deemed perfectly healthy, after shedding hundreds of kilos and developing an insatiable appetite for food, drove him to unleash his fury on the doctor. He demanded an explanation for being labeled as normal, especially after shelling out a hefty sum of $3,800 for his examination. The doctor, taken aback by the boy's outburst, defended himself by claiming it wasn't his fault that the lad was miraculously healthy and whole. With no alternative in sight, the doctor reluctantly prescribed some Chinese medicine as a last resort, much to the protagonist's astonishment. Half an hour later, as Shi Tian strolled home near the intersection in front of the hospital, he pondered the baffling question of how his body could return to a state of normalcy following the previous day's events. Suddenly, something caught his eye. 2 lovely ladies standing across the street, who shyly noticed his gaze upon them. However, to Shi Tian's surprise, his attention wasn't drawn to the girls themselves, but rather to the snacks they held. His mind, once again consumed by thoughts of food, fixated on every edible object within sight, as if under a tantalizing spell. Shi Tian teetered on the edge of losing control, consumed by a ravenous hunger that gnawed at him like a beast. His insatiable craving threatened to engulf him, morphing him into a famished fiend ready to commit culinary crimes. As drool threatened to spill from his mouth, the haunting hunger pushed him to the brink of madness, hinting at a primal transformation into a cannibalistic creature. Before long, Shi Tian stumbled upon the BFC restaurant, its inviting lights beckoning to his growling stomach. Upon entering, he was greeted by a waitress who, with a warm smile, inquired about his order. Without waiting for her to finish speaking, Shi Tian slammed his hand on the table, startling the poor girl to the core. Yet as she gazed into his mesmerizing eyes, she found herself entranced by his rugged charm and allure. However, the mood swiftly shifted as Shi Tian rattled off his order, listing every dish that danced through his mind. The voracious boy not only requested nearly 30 dishes from the menu, but also demanded 2 servings of each. In a whirlwind of hunger, he devoured his feast within minutes, yet the insatiable void in his belly still cried for more, prompting him to seek out the next nearest eatery without a second thought. Upon his arrival, Shi Tian wasted no time in slamming his hand on the table and unleashing a torrent of orders, doubling up on each dish as if on a feast quest. In no time, he had polished off nearly every morsel before his eyes, leaving no crumb behind. Without skipping a beat, Shi Tian breezed into the next restaurant, demanding a vast array of dishes to be prepared with haste. However, this time, the insatiable boy had a different plan in mind. He intended to cart his mountain of food back home for a future feast. The sheer volume of dishes Shutian amassed could have easily fed all the homeless souls in America, yet his hunger seemed insatiable, driving him to seek out even more. As memories of his childhood beckoned, Shutian found himself transported back to a time when he first savored the taste of fast food on a family trip. The wonder of those initial flavors captivated his young self, prompting him to inquire about the name of this delectable fare. His mother beamed with joy at her son's delight in the meal until the father intervened, rising from his seat to bestow wisdom upon Shutian. With a gentle touch to his son's head, he revealed the truth behind the food's allure. It was no gourmet delight, but simply dubbed junk food. Since that fateful day, Shutian made a solemn vow to steer clear of those temptingly sinful foods, all in the relentless pursuit of shedding those pesky pounds and living up to his father's expectations. Throughout the years, he restricted himself solely to consuming flavorless vegan fare, enduring the tasteless meals as a reminder of the sacrifices made on his weight loss journey, tears cascading down his cheeks like a never-ending river. In that moment, Shutian glimpsed his younger self, a child longing to reunite with his once beloved friends, lost in the pursuit of a slimmer figure. The newfound freedom to indulge in any culinary delight reignited a spark of joy within him, tears of elation streaming down his face. As the boy's emotions settled, thoughts of his hunger crept back into his mind, prompting him to assess the seemingly endless bounty of edible treasures he had amassed on his journey home. Shutian pondered, calculating based on his appetite how long he could possibly last without the need for sustenance. In a flash of realization, he concluded that he possessed just enough food to last a mere 24 hours. The forlorn boy rose to his feet, besieged by feelings of disappointment and hopelessness as he grappled with his current predicament. At that moment, all he could do was obediently reach for the medicine prescribed by the doctor. Shutian gingerly unfurled one of the medicine pouches, allowing its contents to trickle into a teapot brimming with water. With pot in hand, he ambled toward the kitchen, presumably in search of a suitable vessel for administering his concoction. His mind whirled with thoughts of his insatiable appetite, now seemingly expanded to a staggering 20-fold since his weight loss. Pondering whether this surge was a malady and, if so, whether it posed a threat to his well-being, he absently trudged on, unwitting to the blistering heat emanating from the teapot he cradled. The searing sensation from the pot handle jolted Shutian back to reality, jarring him from his musings. In a panic, he fumbled and accidentally spilled the scalding medicine over his entire body. Initially bracing for the worst, Shutian realized with relief that he had jumped to conclusions, for no harm had befallen him. However, his bewilderment only deepened as he registered the fact that the pot had not even touched the stove yet, wondering how the cold water began to boil just in a few seconds after he touched the pot. Looking at his hand, an idea crossed Shutian's minuscule mind. But to be certain, he needed to utilize a thermometer to determine if his own body was the cause of the water boiling. The young lad cautiously brought the thermometer close to his finger, but upon impact, it exploded like a firecracker, causing the poor boy to urinate in his garments. Undeterred, he decided to try another thermometer not meant for measuring human temperature, but for barbecuing. Shutian gingerly placed the thermometer on the tip of his finger, discovering that his temperature was a scorching 230 degrees Celsius. Shocked, he stood frozen in place, frightened by the realization that his body was almost 200 degrees hotter than a normal person. With no other option, the main character decided to imprison himself in the house for next 3 following days to experiment on it. The first revelation he made was about his height, which had decreased from 220 centimeters to 187 centimeters. The second discovery was concerning his weight, which had plummeted from 420 kilos to a mere 62. The third revelation was about his appetite, which, contrary to expectations, had increased nearly 20-fold compared to his previous state. Shutian also noted that his metabolic rate remained constant in normal circumstances, but discovered everything changes when he consumes food. Surprisingly, only his hands became scorching hot, burning up the calories he had ingested. Additionally, the boy discovered that by consistently refraining from eating, he could become abnormally ravenous, causing his hands to heat up uncontrollably and hastening his slimming process. Lastly, but not least, he realized that his body had developed an immunity to all kinds of heat, rendering him a suitable candidate for a firefighting role. These revelations weren't all that bad until a notification from his bank worsened the situation, indicating that he had exhausted every penny he had painstakingly saved over time. Without any further explanation, a week flew by, and the setting shifted to the school where Shi Tian was receiving his education. Everything appeared normal until something caught the students' attention, causing them to freeze in astonishment. Meanwhile, on the second floor, two first-grade students were discussing a rumor about Shi Tian's clothes being discovered amidst the gym's debris, suggesting that he had been hospitalized due to his poor condition. However, another student overheard and shared a contrasting tale, claiming that Shi Tian had simply caught a cold, accounting for his absence from school in recent days. Just then, a shiny object diverted their focus, momentarily halting their debate. Simultaneously, another student, who appeared to be Shi Tian's classmate, was anxiously counting the seconds and minutes that had passed since his beloved friend, Big Daddy Shi Tian, failed to show up at school. He was clearly missing him dearly until another glittering distraction caused him to lose control of a water bottle, resulting in it slipping from his grasp. And of course, who else but Shi Tian decided to make his grand return to school after a solid 8 days? With his dashing good looks, he practically glowed like a damn star in everyone's eyes. The dude couldn't help but notice the way people's attitudes shifted as soon as he strutted in with his handsome mug. The girls were practically spellbound, and the guys were left speechless just by laying eyes on him. Shi Tian was starting to feel pretty darn confident in his newfound gorgeousness, but that confidence quickly nosedived when 4 of his buddies simultaneously stopped him and blurted out in disbelief, "Who are you?" Up until that moment, Shi Tian had been under the impression that despite his transformation, everyone still recognized him as the Big Daddy Shi Tian. But his old pal's reaction threw him for a loop and pissed him off. Just as he was getting fed up with his so-called friends at school, a voice called out to him from behind. Shi Tian turned his gaze to see who it was and spotted a cute girl who was clearly flustered, asking if he was the one. At first, she didn't specify whom she was referring to, sparking a tiny glimmer of hope in Shi Tian that this chick recognized him from their past and was coming to confess her undying love. But his hopes came crashing down when she revealed she was actually talking about a dude from her dream the previous night, a prince on a white horse who had swooped in to save her. Shi Tian was on the brink of losing his cool and giving that girl a good slap on the butt to send her flying, but he thought better of it, fearing the repercussions. Fed up with the bizarre behavior of his classmates, he made the bold move to unveil his true identity, screaming at the top of his lungs that he was Shi Tian, the Big Daddy that everyone knew and loved. As anticipated, no one bought into it. Instead, they were all utterly shocked, questioning the poor bloke's sanity. Observing their stunned faces, Shi Tian opted for a different strategy to assert his true identity. The protagonist had no recourse but to expose the secrets of each individual. Clandestine information only he, as Shi Tian, was privy to. He began by unveiling Wang Taikwai's secret, followed by Lu Xiaowei's near miss with a group of 17 tough guys, which Shi Tian had helped him out of. Then came Zhao Shitou's embarrassing incident of wetting himself when faced with a robbery. Shi Tian continued to spill the beans on the boys' concealed truths, one by one, determined to drive his point home. Before long, the perplexed students pieced it together. It was indeed the familiar face of Big Daddy Shi Tian, but his new appearance still left them in a whirlwind of confusion. The girls in his class had a different reaction, beginning to acknowledge that he was, in fact, Shi Tian, speculating that he had undergone liposuction after tending to his burns. Though it was merely hearsay, it became the most believable tale in their eyes. However, the girls' growing infatuation with Shi Tian, envisioning him as a revamped version of Daddy Shi Tian, who would cater to their every whim, dashed the hopes of the boys in his class. Heartbroken and distraught, they left the scene in tears, resigned to the fact that they would only have moms in their class from now on. Soon their class commenced, and the teacher joyously announced Shi Tian's triumphant return after enduring several challenging days. As expected, everyone erupted into cheers at the sight of him, and with his transformed appearance, it was impossible not to feel joyous about his comeback. The radiant Shi Tian reclaimed his coveted spot at the front of the classroom, and the teacher proceeded to deliver the day's lessons as usual. A sense of contentment washed over one of the boys who typically sat behind Shi Tian as he realized he could indulge in his video game once more after a prolonged hiatus. Without hesitation, he retrieved his console and monitor, reconnected them, and delved into his favorite game. Similarly, the girl seated behind him swiftly changed into her ballet attire and commenced a graceful dance routine, reminiscent of her routines from when Shi Tian was still in class. They weren't alone in their actions, as the other students who had often hidden in Shi Tian's shadow opted to pursue their own interests once more, whether it was bringing in pets, napping, or engaging with their Gundam models. In contrast, one student at the back of the room found himself disheartened by the situation, longing to focus on absorbing the teacher's instructions. However, he found himself powerless to change the circumstances and had no choice but to endure them. It seemed that everything had returned to the idyllic days of yore after enduring 8 long and dreary days at school without Shi Tian. Once again, the chap seated behind Shi Tian was deeply engrossed in his gaming session when a crumpled piece of paper smacked his oversized noggin, much like on the first chapter of this story. To his surprise, it was the same determined girl from before, attempting once more to discreetly warn her clueless classmate about potential trouble with the teacher. The daft lad parroted his delusional mantra about being under the protection of Big Daddy Shi Tian, convinced that the teacher wouldn't have a clue. Little did he know that Shi Tian had shed his former larger-than-life persona and was now just a regular dude of average size sitting right in front of him. In an instant, the realization dawned on him that the sharp-eyed teacher had already caught wind of his shenanigans, and he felt the flush of embarrassment wash over him. Hastily, he stashed the console and monitor back under his desk, but he wasn't the only one recognizing the gravity of the situation. Everyone who had taken advantage of Shi Tian's absence to slack off found themselves scrambling back to their seats, a collective gloom settling over the once carefree classroom. The lone exception was the fellow positioned behind them all, who now basked in the rare moment of uninterrupted focus on the teacher's instruction. Alas, their melodic sobs echoed through the room like a chorus of disgruntled toddlers, each one wallowing in disappointment and despair at the prospect of returning to their monotonous school routine, reminiscent of the downtime when Shi Tian was bedridden. The heartbroken ballet enthusiast, who had been passionately twirling in hopes of becoming a world-renowned dancer, found herself crestfallen by this turn of events that she futilely wished had never come to pass. Her sorrow stemmed from a simple and bitter truth. Her aspirations of pirouetting into stardom were squashed by her overbearing parents, who forbade her to practice at home or anywhere else, leaving school as her only sanctuary for honing her craft. It was all thanks to Shi Tian, but now that sanctuary crumbled before her eyes, dragging her dreams down like fading stage curtains. The students behind Shi Tian resembled a bunch of sparrows chillin' in their cozy forest near the big city, living their best lives until a bunch of random humans crashed the party, disrupting their peaceful existence. Before they knew it, those bird-brained students found themselves with their only hangout spot wrecked, leaving them with nowhere to chill or spread their wings. The gal, just like the rest of them, reluctantly embraced her crappy luck with tears welling up in her eyes. Initially, Shi Tian was laser-focused on the teacher's lesson, but the sound of sniffles behind him caught his attention, prompting him to turn around and see if anyone needed help. Instead of lending a hand, the dude flashed a charming smile and a wave, aiming to comfort the distraught girl. Unfortunately, his attempt at being a good Samaritan didn't quite hit the mark, leaving the girl feeling even more torn up inside. She couldn't decide if she was mourning the loss of her sanctuary or crying over the unattainable crush she had on the handsome dude sitting up front. As hours ticked by and the afternoon break rolled around, offering a moment of respite post-lessons, the atmosphere was anything but chill. It was none other than the silver-haired troublemaker, the gym arsonist, who was minding his own business until his bro dropped the bomb that Shi Tian was back in the schoolyard. Just like that, his moment of peace was shattered into a million pieces, signaling an impending storm with Shi Tian's return stirring up drama left and right. The chilling realization that Shi Tian might hunt them down for revenge sent shivers of fear down their spines. The silver-haired dude, quaking in terror, grabbed his buddy's collar and vehemently denied setting fire to the gym, claiming he only wanted to trap Shi Tian inside for a hot minute, not torch the place. The blondie, seeking guidance from his older bro, pressed for their next move, fretting over their careless mistake of leaving evidence behind that could easily lead Shi Tian straight to them. He also brought up the silver-haired dude's earlier remark about Shi Tian training to snuff someone out, putting their lives at stake. This stark warning prompted the boy to break ties with Blondie, asserting that if their lives were on the line, it was better to take matters into their own hands and eliminate Shetian before he could strike. Despite his bravado, his sidekick doubted his ability to take on Shetian and suggested a noble sacrifice by jumping off a tall building to preserve his honor rather than facing inevitable defeat. Once again, the Blondie pondered whether to get involved or not. This time, the silver-haired dude left the decision up to him, offering a choice between joining forces or abandoning ship, all while cautioning Blondie about the brutal fate that awaited anyone caught implicated in the gym arson. His ominous words struck a nerve with Blondie, driving him to tears as he wept like a lost child mourning his grandma. Huddled in a corner, feeling forsaken like an orphan, he whispered to the heavens, pleading for a fresh start and promising to lead a virtuous life if he survived the looming threat of Shutian's wrath. His actions irked his older brother, who was driven to anger, prompting him to unveil his hidden agenda with a stern expression. He recounted the rumors swirling about Shitian, shedding tons of weight post-liposuction at the hospital. This bombshell revelation momentarily halted Blondie's tears as he pondered the validity of his brother's claims. For added confidence, the silver-haired bully emphasized that this was their prime opportunity to take down Shutian, as he believed the current slimmed-down version couldn't hold a candle to his former bulky self boasting over 400 kilos of muscle. With no room for debate, he made a move to exit the school premises and beckoned Blondie to follow suit. After a while, they arrived at an unfamiliar street in the city, leading to an old, run-down shed. As they stepped inside, Blondie couldn't resist questioning their peculiar location and the purpose of their visit. Sporting a sinister smirk, the silver-haired bully ordered Blondie to zip it and observe their surroundings. With apprehension creeping in, Blondie scanned the scene, only to be stunned by the sight of a motley crew of shady individuals assembled within the confines of the shed. Each person seemed more menacing than the next, casting a foreboding shadow in Blondie's eyes. There, suddenly, the silver-haired dude proudly proclaimed that this ragtag bunch were the rowdiest gangsters from the nearest 20 blocks, the ones dodging the heat from the fuzz like a greased-up pig at a country fair. At the far end of the hall, looming like a grumpy bear awakened from hibernation, stood Big Bad Liu Hu, the gang honcho known far and wide as the unstoppable Kingpin. With a voice that could curdle milk and a face that could scare a ghost, he barked at the kid. "Hey, squirt, spill the beans! Why'd you round us all up like a bunch of strays?" Another shady character chimed in, laying down the law and making it crystal clear that if the kid's reason for summoning them wasn't up to snuff, he'd be coughing up blood as payment. The kid, sweat dripping like a leaky faucet, knew better than to sass off any of these tough customers. Mustering his mediocre courage, he blurted out that he brought the gang together for a classified mission, to give a beatdown to some dude named Shutian. The moment the gang boss heard Shutian's name, his mug twisted in disbelief, sending his body reeling and crashing down like a sack of potatoes. It appeared that Shutian and Liu Hu had already tangoed in the past, which led to the boss's spine-chilling declaration, "Pound sand isn't staying alive good enough for you." He slithered on the ground like a sneaky snake, faux pitching a story that he just swung by for a hot pot feast at the silver dude's behest. Meanwhile, the green-haired crook, a bundle of nerves at the mere mention of Shutian, pulled a fast one, pretending he schlepped all the way over for some, fertilizer-quality eats, hence lugging a knife for the, culinary aspects.